Most of us know the Green New Deal from AOC and the Sunrise Movement, which have breathed new life into it in the United States. But what most of us don't know is that the Green New Deal was actually created here in the UK almost 12 years ago by a group of environmentalists and economists, one of whom was our Green MP, Caroline Lucas. As a way to kick off this mini documentary series, we thought we would go and visit Caroline Lucas to talk about the Green New Deal and also visit Julian Dean, who is the newly appointed Climate Emergency Officer for the Green Party, who is going to be working locally with councils that have declared a climate emergency to help them create a plan of action for their community, which exemplifies all the local aspects of the Green New Deal that can be enacted without the help of central government.
In terms of telling the story of the Green New Deal, we're going back to actually even 2007, I think, when the financial storm clouds were gathering, and there's a rather amazing guy who used to work at Greenpeace called Colin Hines, and he gathered together a group of economists and Greens. We met in the flat belonging to Anne Pettifer, who is well known as being one of the founders of the Jubilee debt campaign. So she was really active, 15, 20 years ago, trying to make sure that we cancelled debt. So we all gathered in her flat, and we continued to meet there, on a monthly basis for many years, actually. And taking our inspiration from President Roosevelt and how he managed to get the US out of the Depression then, he did that through a massive public investment into infrastructure and so forth. And this was the time when, of course, the government, in response to the financial crisis, was absolutely drying up any kind of investment, exactly the wrong thing to be doing. So President Roosevelt, his program was called the New Deal. We wanted it obviously to be a Green New Deal. We wanted the investment to be going into green energy efficiency, and that's how it was born, basically. It is great that other parties are talking about Green New Deal, are wanting to be seen to be in the forefront of championing it, even though they're pretty late to the party, but that's fine. But there is a danger with the kind of pick and mix approach, and that does worry me, because it's quite interesting that some parties like Labour will talk more often about a green industrial revolution, and that's one half of the Green New Deal, but it's not all of it by any means. So their green industrial revolution is about, yes, investing in green energy and energy efficiency, and that's really important. We need to make every home insulated and properly fuel efficient. That's really important. But what they're missing really is the reform of the financial system, which still hasn't happened even after the crash, and crucially also the social justice angle, because a Green New Deal has to be a once-in-a-generation opportunity to fix an economic system that is not only trashing the climate, but which is also, not helping the vast majority of people, indeed pushing the vast majority of people closer to vulnerability and poverty and so forth. I think there's a real opportunity for us as we approach the local elections, not least because councils up and down the country have been adopting so-called climate emergency motions, and that's thanks indeed to a Green councillor, Carla Denyer in Bristol, who drafted the very first motion that came to Bristol Council, and that was about, as I say, declaring a climate emergency, declaring that they want to go net zero by 2030. And lots of councils have followed suit, but the thing is, none of them actually know what it means or what to do now. I mean, it's fair enough just to declare something, but that doesn't change anything. So I think having Greens working with others at a local level to really set out what would a Green New Deal look like in different localities. So for example, if you're in an area where, let's say, there is a steelworks or a car manufacturers or whatever, then how do we work with the unions and ensure that there's a process that's driven by people on the front line, if you like, not having solutions being imposed on them, but solutions coming from the workers themselves to work out what extra training they would need, what financial support they would need, how do they transition their industry into something that's much less environmentally damaging and so forth. And I think the more local plans we can get that look like that, the more exciting it is. And there are some exciting things happening.
So I'm working for the Green Party to support our councillors at every level, right up and down the country, in their action to try and make their councils take action on the climate. I think one of the things that's struck me, I've only been a councillor for a couple of years, but nevertheless I get the impression that the whole climate emergency campaign and work that is going on locally has really enlivened local democracy. So people are turning up to council meetings and writing to councillors and you know, asking public questions and using all sorts of procedures that people didn't even know existed. Yeah. And that's great, and that's what we need. We need people to keep doing that. And like I say, with parish councillors and with local people already showing that they want these sorts of transformations, then I think people just keeping on putting that message. But also, there are things you can do outside the council. One of the exciting developments that I've been looking into, and I want to get some stuff out to our councillors to really support, is local energy generation. So co-ops are springing up all over the place, which are doing things like popping solar panels onto buildings and then feeding the electricity to homes where people can't necessarily, you know, are struggling for cheap electricity. And then it's a locally owned business. And it's also absolutely essential because we know that as we transform energy, the grid isn't going to be able to cope. So we absolutely need renewable local energy. So that's the sort of thing that people can actually get involved in, whether or not the council's doing it to a certain extent. It's about reducing carbon emissions, but doing it in such a way that is socially inclusive and deals with poverty and deals with injustice. And so, you know, it can cover a whole load of different things. And so, you know, no one party owns it, but we've done some really great work on it.
Throughout these islands, there are grassroots projects percolating with solutions. They are living examples of the Green New Deal in action. Though it's hard to see close up, each of these solutions act as a thread, weaving together a fairer, greener future for everyone, while enhancing community ownership of local economies. Over the next 6 weeks, we're going to introduce you to people and projects that are being pushed through policy or through community action to help solve the climate, ecological, social, and economic injustices in this country. Join us next week as we learn about regenerative food systems. We'll be visiting some inspiring projects that showcase the Green New Deal in action.